Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of UCalgary's webinar series, where we are discussing social innovation. I'm Deborah Yedlin, and I'll be your moderator today. If you have participated in one of our previous webinars, welcome back, and to all our new viewers, thanks for joining us. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're recording this webinar on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We started this webinar series at the onset of the pandemic a year ago. And yes, it's been a year. It's hard to believe 12 months have passed so quickly. Our aim was to inform and support our community members by connecting them with COVID-related research and resources and help them to navigate the challenging times. We have since expanded our focus to include a wider variety of webinar topics, but our purpose is still the same: to share knowledge and provide insight from our guests and UCalgary experts. Together, we can use research and facts to take on the challenges that face us. I'm very excited about today's event, and we are kicking it off with news about social innovation at UCalgary. UCalgary President Dr. Ed McCauley is here to tell you about the university's next step in transforming social and environmental challenges into opportunities and empowering communities to act on them. Welcome, President McCauley.
Thank you, Chancellor Yedlin. Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to see this level of engagement in our webinar today. Welcome to all of you. Social innovation represents an area of tremendous opportunity for our community because it builds on leadership that has already been taking place. Calgarians hold a record of applying bold, innovative thinking to address the most pressing issues facing our society. And this commitment has led to some fantastic programs here at the University of Calgary. Through initiatives such as the Hunter Hub for Entrepreneurial Thinking, our Office of Sustainability, the Trico Foundation Social Entrepreneurship Center, and our Social Enterprise Incubator with Innovate Calgary. And there are many other programs. We're engaging students, faculty, and staff in meaningful opportunities to learn about social innovation and apply the principles of social enterprise to real-world challenges. There's a tremendous benefit when we look at these programs in terms of experiential learning and knowledge creation. But when we look at the social impact, at how social innovation can change lives and save lives, this is where we see long-term, incredible transformation in our community. A great example is a program called Living Works, which is a social venture that provides education and awareness to prevent suicide. Living Works was developed through research led by Richard Ramsey, a professor emeritus in the Faculty of Social Work. After receiving an initial investment to get this venture up and running, Living Works has gone global. More than 2 million people have received training through Living Works in 20 countries around the world, with more than 90,000 interventions annually. Living Works quite literally is saving lives. And it's this type of impact that we can achieve through social innovation and enterprise. The support of our community makes all the difference, including strong partnerships with other community and impact-driven organizations like the United Way of Calgary and area. We're able to work closely with these partners to make sure that we're creating solutions and knowledge informed by the needs of our community, while also extending the impact of these initiatives to as many people as possible. The spirit of collaboration and mutual benefit is central to social innovation, which is why I am absolutely thrilled to share a special announcement with all of you today. Thanks to the support of the United Way of Calgary and area, our university has launched a new fund within our USeed program, which is led by Innovate Calgary and provides seed stage funding to startup companies. The USeed Social Impact Fund will support startups that are meeting critical societal needs and issues through new products, services, and processes, as well as innovative ideas to improve existing processes and programs. The United Way is the lead donor of this fund with a generous contribution of $2.5 million. It means the world to our university to have a community leader and longstanding partner like the United Way make this investments towards meaningful social impact. We're building a dynamic hub for social innovation in Calgary with lasting benefits for generations to come. I think the speakers on this webinar are all wonderful examples of the leadership and ingenuity involved and the exciting work ahead of us. So on that note, I'll turn things back over to Chancellor Yedlin to continue our program today, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. McCauley, for sharing that exciting news about the USEED Social Innovation Fund. And as you said, UCalgary's work in social innovation has already made a difference in our community, and now we're going to see it even grow larger through partnerships, which is how we make the city a better place for everyone. As we all know too well, the last year has been challenging. Impacts of the pandemic and the economic downturn have amplified our need to make positive, systemic change. Social innovation is an idea generated through collaboration that renews existing structures and processes and has the potential to improve the quality and quantity of life. A social innovation approach is holistic. It brings together inclusive partnerships capable of taking on challenges that are too big for one individual, company, or sector to solve. UCalgary's partnership with United Way and Innovate Calgary is powerful. As a former United Way board member and 2016 campaign co-chair, I have seen firsthand the important work the United Way does in this city. I've often said it holds the heat map for Calgary. Working together and through the USEED Social Innovation Fund, we can make an impact by targeting specific issues that are important to Calgarians. We are learning from the tech and business sectors. We are connecting with the right partners to intentionally design systems to benefit our community and make Calgary a better place for all of us. I'm delighted to be joined today by three key drivers in UCalgary's innovation ecosystem. Dr. Karen Benzies is a professor with the Faculty of Nursing, holding adjunct appointments in pediatrics and community health sciences in the Cummings School of Medicine. Karen has contributed to many important advancements to accelerate policy and practice changes to improve the health of young children and their families. Beth Junak is the Vice President and COO of United Way area in Calgary. She is committed to building places and spaces based on the principles of equity and diversity, where everyone feels safe and valued and where both creativity and practical realities can coexist. John Wilson is President and CEO of Innovate Calgary, where he leads a team of professionals to contribute to the design and delivery of the University of Calgary's innovation agenda. Throughout the discussion, I encourage audience members to submit questions or comments at any time by using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. After we hear from our panelists, we will open the discussion to the questions you submit. I'd like to welcome Dr. Karen Benzies to start us off.
Thank you, Dr. Yedlin. The City of Calgary and the University of Calgary are resilient organizations. We know they are resilient because they value diversity. They are in touch with local realities. They accept uncertainty and change, engage with their constituents, and focus on preparedness for the future. Both organizations are known for their efforts to achieve social and economic equity, common social values, and structures. Although it may not be the desired future state, we have come to accept that we cannot restore prior states following the pandemic. To achieve adaptive and transformational capacity that the pandemic has asked of us, we must look to social innovation, but the journey is not always clear. If we could have the next slide, that would be great. Thank you. Over the past 20 years, I've been studying what makes individuals and communities resilient. and with community partners have been creating and testing innovations to solve complex social problems. Over the past year, social resilience has been put to the test like never before. Calgary and area have suffered not one, but two major shocks to our communities. The first shock is the economic condition that preceded the pandemic. The second shock is the pandemic itself. Coupled with a weak economy, and more than 60% of Calgary families are struggling with finances and mental health, and women's work has been disproportionately affected. There is an urgent need to intentionally design a social innovation ecosystem to enable adaptation and transformation and assure continued resilience. If we understand the value of building resilience in individuals and communities, why is social innovation so challenging? Well, we're working with the definition here at the working group, Social Innovation Working Group at the university. Social innovation is an idea generated through collaboration that renews existing structures and processes and has the potential to improve the common good. I call your attention to key words in the definition. Social innovation is novel, it's collaborative, renews existing structures and processes, and is inclusive and impactful on the common good. Next slide, please. My journey to social innovation was driven by a passion to support families during the transition from pregnancy to early parenthood. We know that children are the future of society and that their experiences in early childhood affect lifelong learning, coping, and health. On my journey, the first innovation was called Booster Dose, a program to teach developmental play to fathers of babies who were born premature. In 2009, we submitted two disclosures to University Technologies International. Two great student teams from Haskayne wrote business plans, and we did several pitches. But the cost of Booster Dose couldn't sustain it in the public health system. We called it an invention at that time, but it was truly a social innovation because we combined existing technology in new ways for a new purpose. Our second social innovation was Welcome to Parenthood, affectionately known as the Baby Box program. Welcome to Parenthood required several iterations in Calgary to get it right. While the education and mentorship significantly reduced mothers' risk for postnatal depression. And people love the baby boxes. The logistics of distributing boxes to the 55,000 babies born in Alberta every year was somewhat challenging. Our most recent social innovation was called Alberta Family Integrated Care, which teaches healthcare providers how to support parents to care for their premature baby in the neonatal intensive care unit. With Alberta Family Integrated Care, parents were less stressed, more confident, and they could take their baby home 2.5 days earlier, and hospitals avoided about $17 million in costs per year. With support from Innovate Calgary, in the last 7 months, we established a startup company called Liminality, rebranded as Merged, and are poised to take this made in Alberta innovation to the world. Next slide, please. My journey to becoming a social innovator took place over more than a decade in a traditional closed system, from idea generation to making the innovation available for use. Large and sudden shocks like the COVID-19 pandemic require open innovation systems to create new opportunities to build on the momentum created by the disruption and we need to intentionally design a social innovation ecosystem with new community university partnerships. In this diverse and inclusive ecosystem lies the potential to design, test, and deploy solutions for public use with benefits realized for society. Madam Chair, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Benzies. I have so many questions I've already scribbled down. So I'd now like to go next to Beth Ginak, the COO of United Way Calgary and area. Beth.
Thank you, Chancellor Yedlin. And thank you, Karen, for talking about the difference between closed and open innovation systems. So United Way has been involved in social innovation, we think, for decades. In fact, there are many local solutions that we designed and developed in collaboration with many partners, such as All In for Youth, our financial empowerment work, and more recently, our work with community hubs in partnership and collaboration with the City of Calgary. So when we started to think about the disruptions that were in front of us last year, we looked at what the ecosystem was looking like, not only within the university, but what types of other partnerships might we be able to bring to bear by bringing our shared value and our shared values into this ecosystem. So we really felt that was the opportunity in front of us. So this is an image that shows you about the whole entire ecosystem. Of course, it's not exhaustive. I don't have a big enough slide for that. But this does give you an idea in terms of how colleges and universities, nonprofits, social capital philanthropists, government, and startups all fit and have a role to play within the development of a healthy ecosystem. Now, we're committed to this ecosystem as United Way Calgary and area, not only for social impact, but because we know in supporting startups and people who want to make impact and employ themselves, this is also a part of our approach to supporting local economic development opportunities. So we're really excited to be in partnership and collaboration with U Calgary, the student, faculty, and staff at the university, bringing all of their knowledge, and with Innovate Calgary to be able to help mobilize that knowledge in collaboration with the community and the community practitioners who've been working in the social impact space to bring all those pieces together. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be amazing. Next slide, please. So here's a really high level and not exhaustive look at the social venture ecosystem in Calgary. So we think about social impact as nonprofits and charities. We think about social enterprises or social businesses. And these are some of the different aspects of that ecosystem that's happening already in Calgary. So intention, involvement, invention leads to innovation. And what we're really looking for is durable, scalable, as Dr. Benzies just discussed, and transformational social impact. You know, when I was on a call with Dr. McCauley just prior to Christmas, he was so inspiring to me and to my CEO, Karen Young, when he said, what are some of the world's largest problems that we might be able to solve together in this new partnership, in this new collaboration? And for us, this type of a view of a venture-based ecosystem in Calgary is really a way to be able to support the great work that's been going on in our community for decades by adding some different pieces into the ecosystem and different pieces into the puzzle. So you'll see our intention here is to get a pipeline of 10,000 startups. And I think what I know about Calgary is 10,000 startups in our pipeline. It's a pretty small number based on the number of ideas and the ingenuity that we have in our community. So bringing together the Hunter Hub for Entrepreneurial Thinking, Innovate Calgary, the Alberta Ecosystem ABC project, our own social impact lab, design thinking lab that the United Way launched a couple of years ago, a companion program, Thrive or REAP with Momentum, the Trico Foundation Social Enterprise Center, the Trico Changemaker Studio, adding in the UC Social Impact Fund and the Federal Social Finance Fund really starts to give us a very robust way in which social innovators can enter into a system and be provided with the different types of supports that different ideas require. You know, new demands require new solutions. And that is really what we think we're doing here in participating and contributing to this social venture ecosystem, supporting existing work and providing opportunity to lean into existing partnerships and understand where those opportunities for growth to increase impact might exist. Next slide, please. So United Way, as I said, has been in this work for a very long time. And just to give you some insight, this is what our strategic building blocks of social innovation are. So we know that social enterprise funding and investment through our own involvement in this fund is critical. Many of the agencies that United Way works with and funds are already engaged and involved in either developing social enterprise ideas, designing social enterprise ideas, or delivering social enterprises right now, but are seeking a way to understand how to scale. So we really do feel that this investment will allow and support agencies that we work with, as well as other social entrepreneurs in our community, to be able to fund and pre-seed their work. And John's going to talk about that in a little bit more. So capacity training, we offer a program at the Social Impact Lab called Inspire. If you have an idea, but you're not too sure what to do with it yet, well, give us a call. We like to actually invite you to join a cohort, meet with like-minded thinkers, and kick around your idea with us a little bit more. So there's a bit more there so that you could actually participate in this pre-seed fund here at USeed. Transformational product design, I've mentioned a few of them we've been involved with over the years. All In for Youth, our financial empowerment work, our community hubs work. Many of you listening in now have contributed to those ventures in one way or another. We have another big one that we're going to start to work on quite quickly here in the next month or so. Looking at Planet Youth, the model from Iceland, we're going to be making a made in Calgary solution to actually look after our children and youth in our community. The one thing that the COVID pandemic has certainly surfaced is that the mental health of children and youth is suffering, and there are things that we can do together through an open innovation approach to help build and support people who are working with children and youth, and families and children and youth themselves in new and different ways. So that's an idea of a transformational product design. There's a lot of expertise. Gosh, our community is smart. There are a lot of great people with great ideas. And this is another opportunity for us to mobilize that knowledge, that expertise, and that passion and that compassion to actually make social impact improvements in our community. And lastly, we're all about collaboration and community engagement. People say to me, what is the value proposition of United Way? And I say it's in our name, United Way. Our value proposition is we bring people together to solve complex social issues to improve lives. And as Chancellor Yedlin has told me, we're in a very fortunate position to be able to have a heat map of both the challenges and the opportunities in our community. And we do a lot of work already in collaboration and partnership with UCalgary. And we know that this relationship is only going to be able to deepen and improve our knowledge of our community so that we can understand where and how to move in our practice of social innovation together. Thank you. Back to you, Councillor.
Still on mute. Thanks, Beth. That was terrific. And I was just thinking about All In for Youth and how I got involved with the United Way through the tutoring table that was structured through All In for Youth to get kids through grade 12 math who needed support. Anyway, it was a great program. John Wilson, it's your floor.
Okay, so thank you, Deb. Okay, so let me start with asking and attempting to answer the question, why USeed social impact? And I think we can all appreciate that starting a new business is difficult in general, and therefore we can also appreciate that starting a business when you're looking to innovate is often going to be even more difficult. It's well known in the innovation community that there is a funding or a financing gap that exists between grant funding and investment. And this gap exists regardless of the nature of the innovation or the business sector. So always seeking to build bridges, UCalgary has developed the USeed program, which is a suite of investment funds where each fund is designed to translate research and evidence-based solutions to create a themed impact. Themes such as health, energy, and in today's discussion, creating a social impact. To this end, we really are very fortunate in Calgary that we have been able to build a partnership between UCalgary and United Way, such that now, working together, we have research from the university. We also have a deep understanding of social needs in our community and globally, and a deep knowledge in deployment of social impact solutions. This is truly a unique opportunity for us to build bridges and to create social impact. I can have the next slide, please. Okay, so this is a very brief overview of the fund. The what on the left is the 5 million is the target fund size, and we've modeled the investment process on investing over 5 years. We're starting now with the first 2.5 million pledged. We expect most investments to be a few tens of thousands, but some might be larger. We are planning 3 intakes annually, so it's not an open call, it's a 4-month cycle. And we will be making both equity investments and loans, depending on the opportunity at hand. And if I haven't said it already, the first round is open now, and applications are sought until the end of April. The how? Well, USEED is milestone-based investing. We're not investing to help with the ongoing costs of a company. We are investing to help move something from research or idea to something which is both sustainable and impactful. The aim is for the fund to become evergreen. So that every dollar that we make from our returns, from our investments, will be placed back into the fund to be invested in the next opportunity. The who, well, we've already mentioned the United Way and UCalgary a few times. There is at least one other important group, which is our advisors for each fund. Every USEED fund has a group of 6 to 7 external advisors with deep knowledge that can help with the investment decisions. And lastly, Innovate Calgary, we manage the fund and the process. We've been helping to translate research for over 30 years. And just in the last 4 years, we've helped to start over 80 companies originating from research from the university. This is the highest recorded number for any university in Canada. So we can have the next slide, please. So who is the fund intended for? Well, to receive an investment, you will need to be one of the groups listed here. You need to be either a for-profit, a not-for-profit, or a cooperative. But individuals who have not yet incorporated can apply. They will just need to choose one of these structures before an investment can be made. And I'll just highlight some of the investment criteria. Seeking seed or pre-seed capital. These are early stage investments. In many cases, we expect that we will be the first investor. Must have an evidence-based solution. The fund is open to university and community members, working together, hopefully, in many cases. And financial sustainability is important, of course, and we can help here. And to be clear, one of the main goals is for that initial donation given to the United Way to have a lasting effect, to build a business, to employ people, and to create an impact that continues for many years beyond the deployment of that initial donation. And then my last slide, please. Okay, this is just an introduction to the process. We expect 30 or more applications in each round. We will select no more than 10 to go into, in investment parlance, due diligence, and that will be early May for this round. We will ask probably 4 to 6 to present to our advisors and to us, likely later in May. And we expect to offer investments in 2 to 4 companies each round. And we will make this decision quickly. Most important bit, for me at least, is on the bottom of this slide. To date, we have completed 3 rounds of investment for our health and child health USEED funds. In round 3, we made offers of investment to 2 companies that first applied in round 1 and were not selected at that time. So we are not a typical investor. Everyone who applies will get support from us, assuming that they want it. And we understand that these are early stage opportunities. Some will need time and work before they're ready to receive investment. And we are seeking to build these long-term relationships. And that's my answer. Back to you, Deborah. Thanks.
Thanks so much, John. Lots of questions to start the discussion rolling. And I'm going to start with Dr. Benzies. What's the difference between, I think the terms get confused, social innovation and social entrepreneurship?
Okay, thank you for the question, Chancellor Yedlin. The social innovation, I think the terms come or emerge from different disciplines. And right now we know at the university, we're working on an evidence-based definition of social entrepreneurship, which is thought more along the line of commercialization. And social innovation has a connotation attached to it of greater good and less entrepreneurship, commercialization. And so there is a difference. And what we're doing at the University of Calgary through our Social Innovation Task Force and some work done at Haskayne is to really drill down and refine those differences so that we have consensus around what we mean here as we move forward, because they're slightly different, but there's some overlap in how different disciplines and different sectors apply the term. And if we're going to measure it and know we've done well on social innovation, we need to have a definition that we can build on, some solid ground.
So question for you, I think, and for Beth as well, and for John, just like, what are the key elements to see successful social innovation? And maybe Beth, I'll start with you and we'll go from there.
Well, I would say, although I've never seen it as part of a formal definition, one of the things that I've certainly lived with in practice, successful social innovations have a lot of partnership and collaboration qualities and characteristics to them. I think Karen said earlier, it's not about going alone and going fast. It really is about, in some respects, going slow and going together, because you understand that the work is extremely interdependent, multi-sectoral. So it's not just this sector or that sector, it's multi-sectoral, and really taking a person-centered approach to it. So what is the problem that we're all trying to solve to improve the lives of a person that's in the center of the thought process and the design process? So there's a lot of intentionality around both the structuring of the partnership and, in my opinion, the knowledge of the collaborators that are required around the table in order to ensure that you're taking that real whole person view on your solution building.
Dr. Benzies, John, anything to add?
Well, I mean, components, and you could see from my slide that over the years, I've tried to do, to really try and move ideas that are generated that would be helpful to children and families, trying to move them forward, make them accessible to the community. And this, your point, Beth, about, going fast and going alone, the research paradigm, we tend to be so focused on our individual programs of research, and we've really been encouraged to do more of that collaboration. So that increased collaboration in terms of those open ecosystems, open innovation models, I think is a key point. And the other key point is this isn't technically an invention. It is you often bring together different ways of doing things to solve a problem. And this whole piece around person-centered, family-centered, it focuses not on the institutions and the organizations that are providing support. It focuses on the person who's receiving the support, because many of our solutions haven't been as effective as they may have been because we've operated in isolation.
Mm-hmm. If there's one thing we've all learned in the last 12 months is that working together is absolutely critical to overcoming whatever challenges we all face. John, I have a question for you from John Rossell, asking if you can expand on the supports that might be available to ventures outside of the actual financing process, and how might these supports be offered to both ventures that attract investment and those that don't, at least on their first application?
Yeah, thanks, Deb. We have a small team of people within Innovate Calgary who are working with faculty and members of the university and members of the community all the time. So really, this fund is something that we're layering on top of what we're doing already. I mean, we've had 3 or 4 years of running a program where we do essentially this, but in a very small way because we've had limited funds. So we've had, I think, 50 something partnerships where we set up new ventures between community and the university to try and create something impactful. So I would say that the best thing to do is to reach out to us. It's a relationship that we are prepared to have in place for people's careers. And sometimes it takes a long time. If you're starting from a research perspective, but you're wanting to have an impact, it could take a number of years before you're ready for investment. And we would like to be on that journey right from the start.
Go ahead, Beth. Did you want to add something, Beth? No? Oh, Karen, sorry. Yeah.
I would, because I've been part of what John's just described.
Mm.
And it's very important if you really truly want to move a social innovation out and make it more accessible to other people. I was trained well as a researcher. I'm a very good scientist. I am not very good at social innovation. And it's different. The thought processes, how to approach it, how to reach out. I needed to learn an entirely different way of thinking about what I did, what I was trained to do. And with Innovate Calgary and the coaching from many angles, it was possible for me to learn new ways of doing this, but not only learn new ways, but to accelerate, to seriously condense the point from generating evidence to moving this innovation out to be accessible in the world.
Beth?
Yeah, and one of the other things that we're offering as part of this collaboration is the services, of our social impact lab, which in many cases, when we were talking about, what is our ecosystem going to be between our organizations, we know that there are likely to be great ideas, great researchers having great ideas, almost needing to do a bit of pre-work before they would even be able to get into a pipeline type conversation. And those supports are available through Innovate Calgary. They're also available through the Social Impact Lab and through other types of programs and services that are about to be launched by Momentum this fall in a collaboration with the Center for Social Innovation. So there's a number of different pieces that we're trying to put together. It's why we're talking about what is the ecosystem of supports and why we're all committed in this partnership to say, listen, we're going to talk with each other as staff all the time. And if there's someone who comes to me that I think might be better to work with Jordana Armstrong and Innovate, well, I'm going to make the introduction to Jordana and Jordana will do her thing. And so part of our commitment to each other in this collaboration is to do that. And the ecosystem conversations and the partners, we get together on the regular too. So we're talking about what is an intentional process that we can create and design together to sense make what's available in our community for budding entrepreneurs to be able to take people through this process, because it can seem quite complicated from the outside, and it's quite complicated sometimes from the inside. So I just want people to know that we're also quite committed to actually being intentional as we design these handoffs within this ecosystem. It's kind of fun. We have an opportunity here to build and design something. Well, that's pretty cool. So, we're going to give ourselves the opportunity to do that work together.
Karen, you've made me think of a book recently published by Adam Grant called Think Again. And he talks a lot about how we have to transform our thinking so that we don't get stuck and we continue to change how we approach challenges. I want to ask all of you a question. We're 12 months into a pandemic and it has upended everybody's life. Private sector, public sector, not-for-profit, everybody's been dealing with a lot of disruption. And I would be curious to hear how much the last 12 months have accelerated change within the social innovation world, and how you see this sort of setting a new pathway for initiatives that come forward to USEED and perhaps to the United Way. I can't help but think that everything's been disrupted. And what do you think has been accelerated from a disruption standpoint in your particular world? I'm going to start with John and then go to Beth and to Karen.
Yeah, I hope you're going to get fuller answers from my two colleagues here. But when I'm giving that question, Deb, I go back to Karen's chart. Well, we must remember that Calgary was already in a position where we knew that something had to happen. And so we were already on this path, and we knew that we had to design these structures and be better at doing this. For sure, the pandemic, as awful as it's been, and I hope everyone is staying safe, it's going to accelerate things. We're a few weeks out from knowing who is going to apply to this. I spend a lot of my time encouraging people just to be a little bit uncomfortable because exciting things happen. And I can tell you that I'm also lived that. I'm a little bit uncomfortable now. because we're just waiting to see who's going to apply, and then we will put in place the best structures we can to support them, and we'll make those innovations hopefully successful in Calgary. But the real thing is that we're then going to put in place a program for many of them to go out to other cities in Canada and around the world, and such that we have made in Calgary solutions, which everyone is going to require now, because we're all in this together, clearly.
Beth and Karen?
Yeah, I would agree with John. I mean, Calgary's been on this journey for quite some time, and I'll speak specifically for the social services sector, or the part of the social services sector with which United Way Calgary and Area works typically every day. These are incredibly hardworking, ingenious people. And the one thing that we discovered right away a year ago is that, people are resilient, our systems are not. And people were hustling, and people were doing work, and people were making things happen while systems were failing around them.
Mhm.
Food security systems, shelter and housing systems, some aspects of financial relief systems. All of these things are predicated on a whole bunch of assumptions, all of which kind of the rug was thrown, ripped out from underneath everyone's feet. But what we saw was that people were committed to each other, and people were committed to each other because they knew that that would be the way that they would help a person who needed the help. So leaning into that work, there have been a ton of different ways of operating. My goodness, look at what's happening up in Northeast Calgary, that community that's come together, rallied by people like Anila Lee Yan from the Center for Newcomers, working with Action Dignity and others, the Community Hubs Project, to actually put vaccination sites together, to build COVID awareness location sites together. All of this is because people decided that they would just lean into the disruption 100% and say the systems weren't working, we're just going to figure it out ourselves. What we now are seeing is that a year in, some of those new practices are starting to normalize, and some of them are starting to settle into what a new normal way of working could look like, or what some new types of solutions could look like. So we're already starting to see people coming into our social impact lab and saying, hey, can you take me on a customer journey here? Can you help me do a business model canvas and start to figure out, how we might try to make this a sustainable approach? To John's point, this is why we're so excited. I know personally of about 10 different ventures that will be applying to USEED based on work that's happened and emerged and accelerated over the past year, because this community is incredibly ingenious.
Karen?
So goodness said it better, Beth. It was based, it's a need. You said person-centered, citizen-centered, based on need. And when the disruption enabled the people who knew how and recognized the need, the disruption actually created a window of tolerance to change structures and processes to enable these things to happen in the way that they did. And they happened quickly. And I'm so happy to hear that some of those are now beginning to normalize. We need more of that.
So what does success look like for this partnership and for USEED? Who wants to take that?
I'll take one aspect if I can, and a longer term one. I'll return to our ambition is that this fund is evergreen. And then this for me is really important. So again, every dollar that gets given gets invested, and the monies that come back go back into the pot and we invest again. So definitely a celebration day. In truth, it's probably 10 years into the future. These are long-term endeavors, but as we know, most things that are worth doing are take some time. But when this becomes evergreen, when we start getting monies returned, that's really a success day and a celebration day for us in the future.
Beth or Karen?
Go ahead, Karen.
Healthier communities, healthier individuals and families, healthier children in the communities, thriving and growing and looking forward to be the next generation of citizens in our society. That's impact.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And there's a question here that whether the collective impact startup initiatives that are being focused on are they focusing on the agri-food sector of those initiatives in the agri-food sector be eligible for USEED consideration? Are you looking at that from a food security perspective? Does that make any sense? Or
Yeah, I can jump in on that one. Yes, we know that there are some of those collectives. In fact, some of those product solutions were designed in our social impact lab starting last summer when we did a food disruptathon where we took an approach to kind of hack the food security system. Yeah, those would be types of ventures that should be eligible. Again, I direct people to the Innovate Calgary website. There's a very detailed link that gives you the specific criteria. And we're putting out the invitation because this is the first thing. Send me an email. James Gamage, our director of the Social Impact Lab, we can send him an email. Our contact information will be made available to folks. Jordana Armstrong and the team at Innovate Calgary are also available for consultations. We're also doing a series of information webinars on various subsections of this fund. I believe those are starting this week. So to give people an opportunity to dive in to specific areas of the fund, the criteria, qualifying, how to fill in the application. I think there are, what is social finance, I think is one of the webinar topics. So there's actually 6 different webinars that are being designed around this fund. And we know that this is part of a learning process for our community. So for me, success looks like more people know about this and more people are familiar with working in this way as a result of our commitment to teaching each other.
question from one of our senators, Kate Wood. Could you describe a few more projects that are already being supported through existing programs? Who would like to take that? Beth, Karen, John?
Sorry, through existing USEED fund projects? And
Well, USEED's new, but I think it's sort of how does that, I guess, what projects are being supported through programs that already exist that maybe will be able to access funding from USEED or be eligible for this, for getting support from this partnership?
Well, Karen is one of her. I know that Karen probably didn't want to volunteer one of hers, so maybe I should. Karen has been a superstar in this area forever. So Karen, why don't you talk about one of your projects?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been many over the years, but with Innovate Calgary and sort of the support that they've been able to provide with the coaching and the design of business practices that you need to move this social innovation out into the world. We've been fortunate to know Jordana's name comes up quite frequently. So Jordana has coached us, just very patiently coached us. We've had opportunities to apply to the USEED fund. We've had benefit of coaching, of access to graduate students from the Haskayne School of Business to teach us how to write business plans, opportunities to give pitches, to practice. And Innovate Calgary and Jordana is amazing. Whenever there's any opportunity, they send it our way so that we know, and as Beth said, we're aware. We've gone together very quickly from idea, evidence generation to being poised to move this out into the world. There is no, this would not have been possible without support from Innovate Calgary programs.
So if I pick something which is different to health or education, John Brown, who's Dean of the School of Architecture, Planning and Landscape, we've been working with him and offering him some assistance, although he's, again, very capable in one of his projects, which is an aging in place project. And so it's been his passion to create home solutions for people who find it now difficult to live in their house because of the particular needs they might have as they get older. So creating new homes that live somewhere very close and allowing someone to stay in their community is something that he's been working on for a number of years. I think that's currently going under the name FAB. So it's had a couple of name changes over the year. Right. So there's a different type of project that we're very proud to be working on.
So we have 110 participants on this webinar and almost 300 registered to listen. What can community members do to play a role in systemic change and social innovation? You have a lot of people listening today? What would you suggest? What would you tell them?
Share your great ideas because the answers or the solutions lie within the community. So reach out and share your great ideas about how to make the world a better place. And it doesn't matter if it's, if you reach out to Beth or Innovate Calgary or people at the University of Calgary who you know, or colleagues who know. Share your great ideas because when those ideas are seeded, we don't know where they're going to go, and they can go great places.
I would just add that there are a lot of great nonprofit charities, agencies who do work across all sectors, right, in this space, social services, arts, culture, etc., who are all making a social impact in the community. If you like what they're doing and you have an idea, reach out, send them an email, reach out to them via social media, etc. I know that the colleagues and the organizations that we're fortunate to work with every day, they're open. They're open for you to support you and your families, but they're also open to hear from you as people who live in this community and who care about this community.
So we know everybody with a good idea may think about starting up a company, whether it's in the not-for-profit or the for-profit sector. And inevitably, there are some challenges that arise. And I'm wondering, John, we talk about the valley of death for funding. What are the yardsticks? Do you think, are they different for a social innovation enterprise or initiative than they are for a tech startup or somebody else that's working in the for-profit sector? And how does Innovate work? How does this partnership support and help the companies through potentially some challenging times?
Yeah, I think there are more similarities than differences, and then this takes us to one of the passions of ours in Innovate Calgary, in that social innovation, we do treat it as though it's a vertical. It's a particular group of things, but increasingly, we would like to look at it as a horizontal. I hope some people understand this language. By horizontal, I mean that if you're going to set up a business and try and create jobs, why not have a social agenda? Try and do something good as well. I mean, why wouldn't you? And so if you apply that thinking, then all we're doing is saying that every business where you're trying to do something new needs some support, often needs some early finance. Yes, in this gap between grant funding to either charities or universities, and the point that outside investors get involved.
Anybody else wish to weigh in on what John just said?
Well, here, John. All businesses have a social impact opportunity, and we believe that to be true. We know that's true for many businesses. In fact, the social impact sector as a business employment sector is one of the fastest growing sectors in Canada. And tech can be a support. The subject matter doesn't matter, but making a social impact in people who want to live their lives in that way.
And yes.
No, go ahead. Yep.
I think in terms of the more recent literature writing about social innovation supports what Beth just said, that every business, every company can have a social impact, because we think about, we need to think about business a little differently. Successful businesses hire people. They support families, and often successful businesses will engage in philanthropy. And so we need a different way of thinking about how business actually does support social impact, because they do. And we can promote it and increase it, but I agree with Beth that every business can have social impact.
So that really goes to the heart of the conversation that we're hearing about right now, is about the ESG metrics, environmental, social, and governance. It's not just about, there's a misnomer. People just think it's about the energy sector. It's not. It's environment, social governance, and it applies to every company in the private or not for profit. And certainly Larry Fink at BlackRock has been talking about that as well in his annual letters. John, I'm curious about one thing. We've heard some conversations about social impact bonds, and how does that sort of fit into this space, or does it, from your perspective?
Yeah, it's I'm glad we've only got a few minutes left because we're now getting into really interesting subjects. Social innovation, social and all the other words, it's still relatively new. I think social bonds have huge potential. I think the world largely, even though they've been successful in one or two places, the world largely is still trying to work out how to deploy them. Canada still probably needs to work out how to deploy them. I would not be surprised if it won't be too long before we're into this program, and we will try and build momentum, and we will start those discussions. I think what you need, without taking too deep a dive, you need to have the social framework in the governments in order to reach out and help create these structures with the investors. I think the investment community is quite keen, but it's putting in place the structures within governments that can be challenging. And I'm not blaming governments here. It really is difficult. So it's one of those things we've got to keep trying to work a bit harder at.
So that was one of my follow-up questions for all of you, was that where does government fit into all this in terms of enabling a robust social innovation sector that supports societal challenges and that meets the needs of the community? Karen?
Governments have problems. I mean, they know where their citizens struggle. And so they should be part of the ecosystem, or they are part of that ecosystem. And it was government's engagement wanting to do social innovation. They reached out to the university and they found me. And, their governments are part of that ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. So it's part of the partnership as well, that we need to make sure that everybody understands what's taking place and what the potential is for resources. Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, no, the civil society sector is a very large employer.
Mm-hmm.
And so these people who are working to support other people are invaluable in terms of the services, programs, and supports that they're providing. And they really are a key, important part of our economy. They're a key important part of social. And they're not interested in handout. They're interested in understanding what their contributions can be and being recognized as making an important contribution. And I think that there's an important mindset shift opportunity available to all of us to understand that collaboration is the new competition, and embedding practices and rewarding practices of collaboration from government to the people with whom they work is a terrific incentive that's right there in front of us.
And how much of a challenge is it? And so clearly it has to transcend the election cycle. And so that's one of the issues that has to be addressed when working with government or seeking support from a policy standpoint. Fair comment?
Yes, a fair comment for sure. I'm a former bureaucrat myself, and I always thought in 25 and 30-year terms. And I do think that's, we have to be thinking in multi-generations to, shared teaching from Dr. Elder Reg Crowshoe, with whom I know many people at the University of Calgary work. This is a 7-generation commitment.
Right.
And thinking in that way for all of us is important.
Karen?
I think Beth has captured it well.
Okay. Last question to you, John. What's a highly coachable team? You have that on your slide. What makes a highly coachable team?
Yeah, I think it gets easier the more you do it. You've got to be happy being a little bit uncomfortable. We all grow up and get taught things, and many of us become experts in certain areas. And then we just have to build a passion for living at the edges a little bit, and accepting that there are lots of things you don't know, even if you might be the world's expert in something else, and enjoying that experience. And I think if you can get a few people like that, where no one fails, it's just a learning process, then exciting things can happen.
Well, we've got about 30 seconds left, so I want to thank all of you for being with us today. Lots of really interesting commentary and discussions about a very exciting initiative in the city between the university and the United Way and Innovate Calgary. So looking forward to hearing the outcomes and the successes a year from now, hopefully in person. Thanks for being with
Thank
us
you, Deb.
today. Have a great
Thanks.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.